First weekend series we got is Wright State versus the Tennessee Volunteers. The reason why I say this is tough is because Wright State has upset some people in regionals.
And Tennessee dropped a series against the Murray State Racers. Give me Wright State. I'm saying it. Wait, where's it at? Knoxville?
Oh, sorry. Hang on. Oh, no. Hang on. I think it's at Tennessee.
I don't care. Give me Wright State. I hate Tennessee. Give me Wright State.
Welcome back to the college lineup. I'm Eli.
And I'm Carson. And Eli, I'm excited to be back with you. Episode number 17. Getting to the fun part of basketball season and getting into some good baseball games. Let's start with some baseball. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right. So I think it's important that we go into some of these midweek games. We've seen some crazy upsets over the past week and a half here with these big conference teams struggling in their midweek games. So I know one that sticks out to me is probably going to be a sore spot for us. I see you got your Vandy hoodie on today. Yeah. Central Arkansas coming out of the A-Sun and beating Vandy 5-4. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what my thoughts are. It's a little frustrating because Vandy overall, I think, is 7-6 or 8-6 now with the win. They won Wednesday, so they had 2 midweek games, which has happened a couple of times the past few weeks since baseball has been going. But yeah, they started. They had a sluggish weekend. They went 0 for 3 in the Las Vegas Classic, losing to 3 teams, and then they play on Tuesday and lose to Central Arkansas and go 0-4 in their last 4 games. They were able to beat Troy the next day, but it's still frustrating because it's tough because we've hit a lot of home runs, and our batters look good, but then it's like whenever we get against good pitching, or I guess Central Arkansas on this standpoint, we just could not swing the bat. Now we ended up scoring, I think, 4 runs that game, so not awful, but our pitching gave up 5, so I'm a little bit worried about our pitching as well. Only time will tell. Again, these midweek games have really, really had the best of a lot of these teams, like LSU, I think, has lost recently in a midweek game, and some of these, I think, some of these other teams have lost some as well, these top-ranked teams. So it's definitely not the midweek games aren't discriminating when it comes to good teams. So, is that because these teams like LSU, Vandy, and some of these other ones, I think Tennessee's lost a midweek game the first week of the season, but are these teams actually as good as we thought they might be? Vandy, I don't know. I'm a little more on the side, unfortunately, of I don't know if they're as good as they have been in the past 10 years or so. But LSU, I don't know. Are they as good as they were last year? Who knows? Hopefully these teams are just more of a kind of a hitting their armor, a little scratch in the armor, and they'll keep moving forward and have a good rest of the season. But it is something to really think about and really consider, because it may just be all preseason hype. We don't know. We haven't experienced it from. Looking at it from just the front cover here, it looks like these teams are struggling, and it may be a tough season for some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these teams are still yet to find their footing, and that's evident too. But when you look in the case of Vanderbilt too, new hitting instructor this year after last year's unfortunate home regional exit. So you're seeing better approaches at the plate, but you are seeing the home run ball from these Vandy hitters, which you haven't seen in years past. They've been very bottom of the SEC in terms of home runs, even bottom of NCAA when it comes to home runs. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing the power, but you're also not seeing a lot of timely hitting. You're seeing the deep ball, but Vanderbilt is missing timely hits when they need it. You referenced LSU. They got beat by Louisiana this week. In-state midweek game, 7-2 this past Wednesday. LSU is currently ranked number 2 in the nation and 11-3, so that's a shocking drop for a midweek game there. And also this past Wednesday, we saw Nichols beat number 10 Southern Miss, who is coming in at 11-2 now. It's only their second loss of the season. So definitely some big-name teams just trying to find their footing, and I think this is probably going to stem the most from pitching, and maybe you're getting in some fielders that usually don't play on the weekend, right? Because I see LSU had 3 errors in this past game. So You're trying to get guys good experience, and that's what midweek games are for. Stay fresh, develop your team. Vandy's always going to take pride in their development of their
Right.
guys over some schools that utilize the portal more, like Tennessee. So I think that's just where you're at. But also, too, you look at Vandy dropping 3 games last week against good teams, and
Right.
that can raise the red flag. I
Yep.
think what I'm looking forward to the most is next weekend, Vandy kicking off conference play with LSU in Nashville. So I think that'll be a good place to see what adjustments Tim Corbin makes and who he rolls out on the field for the first conference weekend.
Yep. That's going to be really interesting to see. One other team that has struggled a little bit the past week or so, Coastal Carolina this past weekend actually lost 2 out of 3 games in the weekend series that they played. And Coastal Carolina was were the runners up last year. So it's going to be interested to see how well they do and see if they're going to still show it, be as good as they were last year. UCLA also has struggled a little bit. They are 10-2, but they did have a midweek falter at the beginning of the season. So it is going to really be interesting to see. And like you said, most of the good teams take these midweek games as let's get some players that aren't going to get to play much, especially during conference play, and see if they can maybe show some light or good things, and maybe they do get thrown in that lineup. But as you can tell, that's where room for upsets are. And it's going to really be interesting to see if this midweek games, while they use it as like kind of practice, if you lose too many of those, that's really going to hurt your tournament chances, regardless of who you are. Even if you're LSU, if you're UCLA, North Carolina, any of these teams, Coastal Carolina, any of these teams that are typically pretty solid or top half of the college baseball, see how they respond to these games, and if that's going to come back to bite them, especially as we get into conference play for these different teams, and also at the end of the season into the tournament play.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best things about baseball is nothing is given and everything is earned. Even though you're facing a midweek opponent, you still have to go out there, step up to the plate, and make things happen. Baseball's a game of failure too, right? And it's also a game of momentum. So when your team goes to these midweek games, do you think it hurts their confidence going into the weekend after dropping a midweek game to I don't want to say a lower opponent, but definitely an opponent where you look at and you think that should be an easy win for your program? Do you think that hurts their confidence going into the weekend?
I think it would have to, especially losing to somebody like Central Arkansas or something like that. That's not a team that you just, that you think in the back of your head, like, oh, this team could actually beat us. You're like, we're going to go out here, play our game, and as long as we play, a normal game, we'll be fine. But I definitely think it can kind of chip off that armor and make you a little more vulnerable. And like, oh, we lost to Central Arkansas. We're supposed to be a top 25 team. And not to say anything bad against Central Arkansas. That's great that you can pull that upset. And great for I'm sure great for their recruiting even. But it really does hurt these top tier baseball teams, and I think it would be a little like worrisome and being like a little bit like we might start the weekend off a little slower, or it may give motivation. It's kind of, I guess, how perceptions in the eye of the beholder kind of deal. If you want it to, motivate you, then I think it definitely can, but it can also be something that kind of makes you take a step back and you're like, oh, we're Vanderbilt or we're LSU. Why are we doing this? Why are we playing so bad in these midweek games when in seasons past, we've gone undefeated or close to undefeated in midweek games. So I definitely think it could be a little bit of like a, make you start off slow kind of thing, especially if you lose too many of them.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it just kind of makes the players play a little bit tighter. Pitchers in the back of their mind they're not gonna be as confident throwing certain pitches that they may have not had success with during the week. Players are gonna be more timid at the plate. They're gonna want to hold back. They're not gonna be afraid of failure, which is something you need to have when you're playing a game as tough as baseball. You need to not be afraid to fail because when you're hitting, if you can get 3 hits out of 10 at bats, then you are an elite level hitter.
Yeah.
But for me, when you struggle against midweek pitching, in a game where your confidence is supposed to be built and building going into this conference play, it definitely is going to make your players tighten up and really wonder if they're as good as they're supposed to be coming into the season.
Yep. And just to one more thing to point out about UCLA, because I just now saw this. They have won after they did lose to San Diego State in a midweek game either last week or a couple weeks ago, and then but then they went on to notch consecutive wins against number 19 Tennessee, number 22 Texas A&M, and number 4 Mississippi State. So they looks like the far better number 1 at the moment, but they did falter a little bit last week or whenever that midweek game loss was. So interesting to see that, even you can beat all these ranked teams and you could still fall to one of these midweek teams, especially if your head is not where it needs to be. But again, people do use their, 4th or 5th rotation guy pitchers to get them some action. So it's always interesting. And, UNA we'll talk about this in the weekly hunt segment, but just to kind of throw it out there, they played a tough game against Ole Miss and they really showed that they could compete as well. Now, granted, obviously midweek games, Ole Miss didn't have their ace pitching or anything like that and probably had some, second or third string guys in the field. But still, it's like, that's something that UNA can look forward to, and it may make Ole Miss be like, oh crap, like we need to get our crap together and really focus on these weekend series as well.
Yep. In these midweek games, you have teams that have nothing to lose, and you have other teams that are just trying to scrape by with a win and save as much talent as they can for the weekend. So I love it. It's one of the things I love about these midweek games is you see teams that are putting themselves out there. Now you have to think of the day and age of the portal, right? You're basically trying out in front of all these D1 coaches every week.
Yep.
Right? And so if you go out there and you perform and you impress, I mean, who knows where you'll be next season?
Right.
Because you're going to have highlights from a D1 high-caliber baseball program, and you performed well. So I also think that's going to play into it too, is you start seeing these teams show up to these midweek games, taking them very seriously and wanting to go all out and win these games because they're trying to put their players in the best position possible to advertise themselves for their future college career as well. So,
and I agree exactly with what you say. These teams that go out and perform like these no-name teams or teams that just you don't expect to lose to in the midweek. They kind of treat it like it's the Super Bowl or it's their national championship game. So they're going to be bringing their best. And if you falter at this point, now some teams you can probably take it a little bit easier on, but if you don't watch these teams, they're still collegiate athletes. They're still collegiate baseball athletes. So they know how to hit the ball. They know how to pitch the ball. You might not be hitting 92 to 95 while you're pitching, more like maybe 85 to 88, 89-ish, but still, I mean, they got a collegiate scholarship for a reason. So if you make 1 or 2 errors in the field, I mean, somebody like Central Arkansas or somebody like San Diego State or anybody like that could very easily beat you if you're not at least not the top of your game, I don't guess, but in the field, if you're making errors and pitching, walks and things like that, anything can happen, especially.
Yep, absolutely, and especially in a game like baseball where if you already have a loss in confidence, you're already struggling at the plate, having that midweek loss just amplifies everything for you, right? And the game speeds up on you, and it's a struggle to slow the game back down, step up to the plate, and start building positive momentum. I mean, my worry with these teams, these good level programs like Vanderbilt and like LSU, is these midweek games just snowball into the weekend, right? And they get so mentally focused on these midweek losses and how they performed that they have a very hard time flipping the switch into the weekend and saying, that's behind us, let's move on. So, honestly, midweek games are great, but they can have the opposite effect and snowball for these teams if they're not careful. Yep. Now, good programs and good coaches are able to flip the switch very, very, very well and it not affect them. But you never know. You never know what goes on inside of a player's head, especially a player that may be at the threat of losing his position. We're just early in the season. I mean, there's very few teams that have a lineup set right now, and if it's set right now, it probably won't look the same in 2 months. So a lot of players are fighting for their spot in the lineup. They're fighting for their time in the field. So you don't know what a midweek struggle that turns into a weekend struggle will amplify into as we move further into conference or move further towards conference play in next couple of weeks. So,
do you think that these teams losing these midweek games, do you think it's a sign of weakness, or do you think it's a little bit overrated in a sense of maybe these games, while they may drop one, do they really matter as much in the big scheme of things?
I definitely think they matter because I think you start building things that go right and you start figuring things out in the midweek games because you are able to experiment just a little bit more.
Right.
And you also have to think you have players on these, we say, lower level programs playing against these good programs in these midweek games, but the players playing for these Vanderbilt, these LSUs, these Coastal Carolinas, these Ole Misses, those players too are trying to prove themselves within that program.
Yeah.
So we say they don't want it as much. And to a certain degree, they don't. It doesn't matter as much to them on paper. There's not going to be 20,000 fans in the stands for these midweek games. But it matters to some of those players that are getting their first shot at Ole Miss. They're getting their first start in the lineup. They're getting their first start on the mound. It matters to them, and they're still going to go out and prove themselves. The opposite side is if that were to go bad, because baseball will go bad on anybody.
Yep.
You'll have a bad outing on the mound. You'll have a couple of bad at-bats. You'll take a bad hop in the field. How do you handle that? And that's what I really look for with these midweek games is I take players that played the midweek, I evaluate them over the weekend, and I say, how were they able to flip the switch and amplify the intensity because now you're playing. I mean, Vandy went out to Vegas. Alabama went out to Texas this past weekend, and they're playing these great teams, top 25 teams this early in the season. How do you flip the switch from playing a out-of-conference lower level school to these top 25 teams? How do you flip that switch in your brain mentally and recalibrate yourself? That's what I really look for with these midweek games. So not overrated, but you definitely need to take note. It's definitely a good little checkpoint during the week for sure.
I agree. One person in specific that did not falter is a Baylor player, Tice Armstrong. He hit 3 grand slams in one game. So he tied the NCAA record. That's something that I think about, that maybe we would do in a game of MLB The Show on PlayStation or something like that. It's just something you don't see much, especially obviously it tied the record, so it doesn't happen a ton. But I mean, that's what 12 RBIs just through home runs specifically, and some people don't even have 12 RBIs this whole season yet, and he was able to get that in one game. That had to be a special thing, and that definitely shows that he's taking it seriously like most other people are, but he really made something happen with that.
Yeah, you're not going to bench a guy that hits 3 grand slams in one game, that's for sure. So had a little bit of luck. Help from his teammates not to be overlooked there, getting on base and put him in that spot. But absolutely, 3 big swings right there, and I think you'll win just about any game that you can single-handedly score 12 runs yourself for. So
I agree.
That's pretty awesome.
Welcome back to our next segment, the Weekly Hunt.
Welcome back to the Weekly Hunt, episode number 17. If this is your first episode of the college lineup, this is our segment where we talk about everything University of North Alabama athletics. That is where me and Eli went to school and met, and so we are both alumni of UNA, and we just like talking about what's going on with their sports programs and kind of anything new with the athletic program as a whole. So I guess we'll kind of still rock with baseball here since we are in the very beginning of baseball season. So UNA baseball. We were talking about this earlier before we both hopped on camera and on the podcast. And I think UNA baseball is the most improved UNA athletic program in the past 4 years. They look good. They look strong. They look competitive. We talked about a few minutes ago how they went out to Oxford last night and competed versus Ole Miss. They have swept a couple of weekend series against teams, which is hard to do in baseball. Baseball is just a hard sport to go out and beat any team 3 times. So UNA looks strong. Eli, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's impressive being able to win these non-conference games as UNA because, when you think about it, the Vandy's, the Alabamas, the Tennessees, the Coastal Carolinas, the Mississippi States, Ole Miss, LSU, input any of the any of the more powerhouse baseball teams, these non-conference, these midweek games are mainly games that you expect to win or ones that you don't expect to be really close. And it's like, it's upsetting if you lose to them. While that's true for a team like UNA, being able to win these series, these weekend series, some of these series are going to be tougher than your conference series are. So being able to sweep a couple weekend series, win 1 out of 2 even, not keeping from being swept out of a few of these series is something that I think UNA as a baseball program can really hang their hats on. Especially this week on their midweek slate, they did go 500 at 1-1. They beat Southern Indiana. I think that was maybe Sunday, so that might, I think it may have been Tuesday. I don't remember for sure, but they did beat Southern Indiana 7-3. They had a solid offensive game. I think they were 7-5 before then. I think they're now 7-6 or 7-7 around there because they did lose to Ole Miss. But like we talked about before we got to this segment, they competed really well. They had an early lead. I think they were up like 5-0 at one point, maybe, or 5-1, something like that. But in the 6th and 7th inning, Ole Miss scored a combined of 7 runs. So that really hurt UNA. But there's some things that are to really hang your hat on. They played really well. They competed against a ranked Ole Miss team, and so that's obviously you didn't win the game, but I think that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, you would love to beat Ole Miss. Anybody would. Especially if you're UNA, but being able to compete with SEC schools while not pulling out the wins yet, showing that, like you said, it showed that improvement that we've been seeing the past 4 years, especially since we became D1 and started competing against more talent. So I'm actually really excited about the rest of the season for baseball. I think UNA baseball team is a sneaky team to look around for, especially in the ASUN. Maybe not NCAA tournament, repercussions or whatever there. But I do definitely think that they could be in contention for going really far in the ASUN this year and having a good record in the ASUN in just the regular season. Because I know last season we were talking about this. They won 1 or 2 games, I think, in the ASUN tournament. So that's always awesome. So I think they're on the up and up, and I think this season's gone really well so far. Although, the record doesn't show, but for UNA, unlike, like the SEC teams or any of the top powerhouse teams, these non-conference games aren't ones that they always expect to win.
Yeah, and we look at last year. Last year was the first time this program has made it to the conference tournament last year. So, going from last year to first year making the conference tournament, you saw little bits and pieces of success there. But, this year, they swept St. Louis this year. They're competing with Ole Miss. They do have a big weekend ahead of them, though. They are playing number 10 Southern Miss series this weekend in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So
if they can take one from them, though, that would be
that's where I'm at.
One. Even if you get swept, but play it close.
Just compete, go out there, scrape a few runs together.
Yep.
Pitching is where I worry about the most here. Do we have pitchers that can be effective enough to get outs?
Yep.
Not necessarily go up there and blow fastballs by guys, throw them off with their off speed. We got to find a way to just throw outs, right? Because they're going to have good approaches at the plate. They're going to put good innings together. Can we find ways to get outs and get off the field and scrape a few runs together? That's what I'm looking for here. Like you said, if they could just scrape a game by, I'd be really, really happy.
Oh, yeah.
But even if they get swept, if they go out and compete, I think it's a good win here. Good exposure for the program, and ultimately you're getting a chance at a top 10 team in the nation. What more could you ask for?
Yeah. And two, if you think about it, it wouldn't really hurt Southern Miss much if they still win the series, because in baseball, the most important thing is winning the series, realistically speaking. If you drop one, it's not as bad. It's like everybody drops one every now and again. So, Southern Miss, if you're willing and feeling like a nice team, maybe give you an A1. No, obviously we don't want that given, and obviously they wouldn't do that. But it'd be a win-win for both teams. Southern Miss could go 2-1 and win the series, and UNA could get a top 10 win. That'd be really exciting. So, So anyway, but yeah, if they could sneak one across or even just keep them close, if every game's close or 2 out of 3 are close, I think you can really, as a UNA fan and as if you're UNA baseball, you can really be excited about where your season's headed. Hopefully,
absolutely. So with that said, I'm going to transition over here to softball, who is 15-4 at this point throughout the season, currently on a 5-game win streak.
They're cooking.
Undefeated at home. Gotta love it. And they're not just beating up on these poor little teams that we scheduled. They have some great wins here. I mean, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, wins versus MTSU.
Yep.
Win versus Chattanooga, right? So, I mean, they're playing good teams. Good win against Belmont and Samford as well. So, what do you think about this UNA softball team?
Yeah, I mean, 15-4. There's not much more you could ask for. I mean, obviously you could hope for a 19-0 start, but realistically, that probably won't happen. So I think they're doing really good. They've actually won 10 of their last 11 games, and like you said, they're undefeated at home, which is really great, especially 2 weeks into the season. They did beat Oakland in a doubleheader. They swept them most recently. And then earlier in one of the weekend series, they did sweep Evansville. So they've been one of the hottest teams, especially in the ASUN for softball right now. And I said sneakily for UNA baseball, maybe being in contention for the ASUN. I really think you got to already be looking out for UNA softball team. And they've you might could say, oh, they've been the most improved in the past 4 years. But if you really look about it, especially if you're a UNA fan or if you're not and just now learning about it, they've been good for a while. I mean, softball has competed, not national championship worthy, but for a newly D1 softball program, I mean, they competed with Alabama one year. I think was it Fouts? Is that
Fouts
her name?
had to come in a couple of years ago and pitch the last 6th and 7th innings of the game because UNA was going to win the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean they're on the up and up. They're just as hot as anybody right now. And we'll get into basketball in a second, but especially with men's basketball being done with, then right now the only thing we have to look forward to is men's baseball, women's softball, and women's basketball right now. So definitely great, and it's something exciting to see because I know me and I'm sure Carson too, one of our favorite sports is baseball and keeping up with softball as well. It's just, one of our favorite pastimes. Carson did play in school. I just played like rec league or whatever, so I can't claim much there. But nonetheless, they're fun to watch and fun to keep up with, especially because anything could happen any day of the week. So,
yep, absolutely. And they have a good test coming up next Tuesday, March 10th. They are playing Ole Miss. And then the next day, they're going to Memphis to play at Memphis. So
maybe they can beat Ole Miss.
Yeah, maybe they can redeem our baseball team there and go and have Ole Miss come into our house and beat them, and then maybe go into Memphis and take it to them too. So
hope so.
I don't know, but I know they're a great team and a great program, and it's always just a breath of consistency.
Yeah.
In a athletic program that hasn't been too consistent in the sport. I love to see it from softball. So
I agree.
Speaking of lack of consistency. That was a good little transition there.
I like
Let's talk about some UNA
it.
basketball. The team that last year was one game away from the NCAA tournament couldn't get through their first game in the conference tournament this year.
ASUN regular season champions last year.
Lost their first game this week in the conference tournament, finishing the season at 9-21, 12th in the conference. Eli, what happened to this UNA basketball program that we loved last year?
People are asked, what's the age-old question? This has now become the age-old question. What happened to UNA's team? What happened to Coach Pujols and the mighty, mighty Fighting Lions, the Roaring Lions? What happened? And you know what? I don't even think scholars. I don't even think doctors. I don't think anybody could have ever expected this to happen. Now, obviously, during the season, we could have kind of, is par for the course. But at the beginning of the season, like we've talked about in previous episodes, in the coaches poll, we were picked second to finish in the ASUN, and in the people's poll, we were picked to place first, and we finished last. So, it's like you said, softball and baseball has been a breath of fresh air from football and basketball. And we'll get into women's basketball here in a second as well. But I was a little bit impressed of how they played in the first round of the A7 tournament. They did lose, ended up losing by 11, but that was not the case the whole game. They were within two with 2 minutes left or something even.
Yep.
So it was a hard fought game, but overall, I just don't think we would there was no formula, rhyme, or reason that I can think of that why we lost or why we didn't have a good season. Obviously, you could say Jakari Lane, and we've been wearing that out all season on the podcast that it hurts to not have him, Daniel Ortiz, Tay Fields, all of them. Glad they're doing well, but it definitely hurts not having them. And that could have been the kicker. But I will say one thing too, Pujols lost his chance to leave because now none of these coaches are going to be, or none of these teams are probably going to be as enticed, which could be a good thing for UNA. This could have just been a down year when we were expected to do well. Don't necessarily think, don't want to put all the blame on Pujols by any means or any of the coaching staff. But it was we just couldn't find what clicked. I mean, we won 9 games all season. And even those games didn't always feel like everything was clicking right. So, I don't know. I hope we figure out that formula for next year. Maybe bring in a few more transfers or a few more good commits. Like Cortez Graham Howell. He showed some light. He had 2 really good dunks in last game, and he actually played I think the most minutes he's played all season in that game as well. So he was just a freshman this year. So if he stays, I don't know if he will or not, but if he does, it may be a good breakout sophomore season for him. So it'll be interesting to see. Right now, not too excited about next year, but only time will tell on that. But yeah, again, I just don't know. I don't know what went wrong.
Yeah, I think you put it great. There's so much talent on this roster. It never clicked. It's so strange to me how you can have so much talent. I think with the most talented roster in the ASUN, if not at least better than half the other teams in the ASUN conference from a talent perspective, it just never clicked. And all season, I was so hopeful, just waiting on the game where it clicked. And flip the switch. This is UNA basketball. And I was even still hoping for that in the first conference tournament game this week. I was like, maybe they go out, they get a big win, they get momentum, and it just never happened. So now I think you've got to do major damage control, right? Yep. You've got to find a way to keep those freshmen, like you said, with Cortez Graham Howard. You've got to find a way to keep them. The freshman guard, Braylon Patton, you've got to find a way to keep him and keep these guys in the program so you can develop them. And they're good, talented players. I mean, they stepped up in a lot of ways when our veteran guys just couldn't get it together. Yeah. So you've got to do damage control. You got to keep guys in this program. And I'm really hoping maybe we can add a few transfers in, maybe some D2, D3 level guys that are looking for a D1 break. Right. I think that's the niche UNA's got to target right now in the transfer portal. Yeah,
and what's frustrating too is, Lipscomb's a team that made it to the NCAA tournament. Well, they lost most of their guys. They had to do a complete, 360 turnaround for this season, and they finished the season 12-6, 19-12 overall, but 12-6 in conference. I think they're still in the ASUN, if my memory serves me correct, in the ASUN tournament. That's with a new
coach as well, because they have a new coach.
Yeah, they got a new coach as well. So it's just interesting. That's kind of where I expected UNA to be.
Yep.
And Lipscomb had a complete turnaround where you expect them to maybe be towards the bottom, and we had, although we lost most of our starters, we did have most returners, at least bench guys. So you would think that we'd at least be a little more competitive. So it's just frustrating, especially seeing your rival finish, top 4, where you were down there at the 12th position, at the very bottom.
Yeah, it definitely stings a little bit. I think we all kind of wanted to get back at Lipscomb last year for keeping us from the NCAA tournament. So it definitely does sting a little bit too. But I mean, you just got at this point, you just got to regroup. New conference next year, new beginnings, new chance to do some bigger, better things next year. What hurts for me the most is seeing Austin Peay at the top of the ASUN standings.
Yeah.
God.
Yep.
I'd rather Lipscomb be over Austin Peay. I mean,
I agree.
15-3 overall in the conference. I mean, that one just.
I agree.
That one just hits a nerve with me.
Yep.
But I mean, next year, I'm hopeful. Do damage control in the portal. You target some good D2, D3 guys. You get them their D1 break. Get them on the court. Rally behind them. I think we're in an okay spot. I wouldn't say fine spot. I'll say okay. We'll know more in the next couple months as the team for 26-27 starts to develop.
Maybe it'll be good to be an underdog for a season.
That's where we thrive as UNA fans. I mean, UNA last year we were looked at to have an okay year, nothing crazy, and we kind of really surprised a lot of people. Got a lot of national attention, so much so that they even scheduled a home game for UNA about a month ago now, to be on ESPN.
Yep.
I mean, UNA got a lot of great attention.
We ended up winning that game too, luckily.
They did. Yeah. Maybe we just play to the spotlight.
Right.
That's
Maybe ESPN we need to get a bigger contract with ESPN and
that's
have
what
them.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
but
I'm there with you.
Yep.
I'm there if it doesn't cost me any money.
We've given them enough money over the years, right?
Right. Yeah. With
we had to
college
get degrees.
especially. Yeah.
But no, I'm hopeful. I'm a big UNA basketball fan still through and through, and I'm curious to see how the portal goes. I'm curious to see how the new conference starts to align for us next year, but hopefully we get to see them turn the page next year. Yep.
I agree. Well, we got one more team to point out, which is our women's basketball team. Just real quick here before we go into our next segment. They're still alive right now.
Not jinxing anything.
Right, not jinxing anything.
You could be listening to this, and that could be wrong.
Yeah. So as of right now, they're at halftime or just started the second half, and they did have the lead at the half.
We're up 4 as of halftime right now in the ASUN quarterfinals, but I'm not going to jinx anything.
Yep.
Just to update there. It won't be like that when you're listening to this, so
right.
Feel free to check in.
Yeah.
Actually, I my laptop just refreshed. We were down 2 almost the fourth quarter.
Oh.
Apologize for that.
Well, maybe we can pull it out. We did beat Queens by 3 in the opening round, so maybe we can do some damage there. The best takeaway so far, they ended the season pretty well, and they are still alive, which is better than what the men's team can say.
Hey, we got a quarter to go.
Yep.
We're going to hop off this. We're going to do this rapid fire. Then we're going to go watch this UNA women's team go and put it to Central Arkansas, hopefully. So
Hope so.
If you're listening to this and you're curious to what happened to the UNA women's team, a quick Google search will answer your questions, and we will break it down next week.
Yep.
So,
welcome back to our rapid fire segment. Okay. Today, I am going to be announcing the 5 teams that we're doing, and we're going to be picking 5 baseball teams, and then we're not going to do basketball this time because all the tournaments are starting. We'll talk about that early next week before all the other tournaments start, like the SEC tournament and things like that. So we're only going to do 5 baseball. So starting off real quick.
Series winner.
Series winner. Yep, sorry. Series winner. Yeah, I'm not used to doing this. Carson typically does it, so he knows what to say. But anyway, we're gonna try it. So first weekend series we got is Wright State versus the Tennessee Volunteers. The reason why I say this is tough is because Wright State has upset some people in regionals.
And Tennessee dropped a series against the Murray State Racers. Give me Wright State. I'm saying it. Wait, where's it at? Knoxville?
Oh, sorry. Hang on. Oh, no. Hang on. I think it's at Tennessee.
I don't care. Give me Wright State. I hate Tennessee. Give me Wright State.
All right. Series-wise, I'm going to go with Tennessee. I think Wright State will pull one out, though. But
good pick.
But I hate Tennessee just as much as other person. But I think Wright State's a good team, and they've proved it, especially in regional games, because I know Vandy's has definitely struggled with them in the past. But I am going to go Tennessee for this one. Next series we're going to do is going to be Stetson versus Arkansas in a weekend series.
Give me Pick Suey on that one.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna go Arkansas.
No. Yeah, you go Stetson, big man.
No, man. I was just seeing what your thoughts were.
Give me Pick Suey and them good-looking Arkansas cream uniforms.
I'm gonna go with Arkansas too. I think it's gonna be probably a sweep.
Yeah.
Third game on the slate: Evansville versus Ole Miss. This is also an interesting one in my opinion because Evansville has had some good seasons here recently.
Mm-hmm. Ole Miss struggled with UNA a little bit. Got some confidence shaken. Still gonna go Ole Miss though. Yep, I like him. I do think Evansville could get a game and make their other two very close, but I like Ole Miss.
I'm gonna pick Ole Miss as well. I think Evansville may take one, maybe. But I think Ole Miss, especially after struggling against UNA in the midweek, they're really going to turn it around and give it to Evansville. So 2 more here. We have Notre Dame, because I know you like their jerseys, versus Duke. So who do you got? It's at Duke, it looks like.
Is either team ranked?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Notre Dame 7-3 and Duke's 12-3.
Give me Notre Dame on this series. Yeah, give me Notre Dame.
I agree. I'm gonna go with Notre Dame. I think they're gonna beat Duke.
Solely a jersey pick right here.
No,
because I feel like they're both about decently average teams, evenly matched teams. But I will go Notre Dame. Yep.
I'm going Notre Dame too. Not because they're jerseys, just because I think they're the better team. So I think they're gonna pull it out. Last one on the slate is going to be Tulane versus TCU. Tulane's 8-5 and they're not ranked this year, but TCU is 7-5 and they're ranked 17th. So I think it's going to be a good weekend series. Who you got?
TCU has played better teams.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're performing at a higher level. Give me TCU.
Yeah. I'm actually going to go with Tulane on this one.
I like the green wave now. I like it.
TCU has had some good competition, but Tulane's really solid pretty much every year for the most part. So I'm going to go Tulane to actually take this series. But so that's the 5 rapid fire questions for us tonight, or whenever y'all are seeing this, probably morning time. But other than that, that's all we got. Thank y'all for listening or watching wherever you do get your podcast. And one thing that we'd like to ask from y'all is if you do like it, give it a thumbs up, or rate our podcast if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you're on YouTube, subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening, and follow our Instagram and share it to somebody. We would like to grow it a little bit more. We enjoy doing it. And if y'all enjoy it as well, try and get more listeners. So thank y'all once again, and that's it. See you next time on the College Lineup.